I'd like to make one overall observation in response to their disadvantage, and that is that our evidence that we brought up, the studies that we brought up, factored in all the factors they talked about possible price increases, and concluded that LNG exports still outweigh these and are still worth it. So I'd like to keep that in mind as I go through this disadvantage, that regardless of what they say, our evidence took that into account, agreed it would happen, and still said it was worth it. So moving on to with their disadvantage, you can flow that across from there as outweighed. My second response to their overall disadvantage is one source. This is in response to their disadvantage, one, a higher consumer price, one source. Now this entire disadvantage is based off of one source, a banker lawyer, basically talking about what might happen. However, we back our case up with the National Economic Research Association, with experts in the business who are actually exporting this, with industry groups. We've backed up with several different sources all saying the same thing. It will be a net economic benefit to the United States. So we can see that, throughout the evidence is heavily on the favor of the affirmative team. Moving down to their link about the Australian example, two responses. First response is a different country. Now, Australia actually recently went through a stock market crash. This was happening around the same time, so there could have been an alternate cause there, and they have also a different economic system. It's a completely different country. Second response is U.S.-specific proofs. U.S.-specific proofs. When we look at the U.S.-specific countries, looking at what can happen if we export it right now, we said we'll be gaining thousands of jobs and we'll be gaining economic growth. So we need to look at the U.S.-specific studies and see what actually happens. We'll be gaining these jobs and it'll be outweighing any price difference. Moving down to their massive job loss, my response is no numbers. We brought up a number on our 1AC that they've completely dropped. There's 244,000 jobs being gained. That is a massive amount of jobs being gained. We should definitely vote. And we have numbers. They said there might be some jobs lost, but we didn't see any numbers there. And in response to their impact too of exports of reduced job growth, our response is it's assuming growth. Now this point might be true if the U.S. industry was growing, but right now it's stalled out. Companies are laying off people because they're not producing. It's because of that reason that we're losing jobs right now. If we continue industry growth and open up more markets, we'll be able to continue gaining jobs and continue growing our economy. So my last overall response to this is increases overall economy. You need to look back at our advantage when we talk about all the benefits that we're giving for the entire economy, the stock market, all the stuff which reflect all the consumers in the United States and allow us to protect our livelihoods. That point still stands. It has not been addressed throughout this round. Now moving on to their solvency point 2 of not profitable in Asia. Two main responses. My first response is competition solves. My partner talked about the analysis under this, that right now with one company exporting it to Japan, there's no competition. Therefore, U.S. companies are selling it for the same price as in Asia. If we have more than one company, if we have more than one U.S. company operating in Japan, there's going to be competition between them. They're going to sell it for a cheaper price. Japan gets cheap oil, so actually competition is going to solve that issue. Moving on to our advantage 1 of U.S. economy. Now basically, as it's also pointed out, the slack in demand. And there are several responses here. They said basically we didn't have any counter evidence. Now first of all, and also that it didn't take years. First response to all of this is our 1AC. We actually brought up a specific from an industry expert saying we're stuck in the approval purgatory. It's basically advanced. So there's one example. My second response is 20 companies. Here's a piece of evidence from an expert in international affairs, actually two experts in international affairs at the U.S. Department of State in fall of 2014. Quote, since 2014, the Office of Fossil Fuels has granted only 6 approval processes for LNG export permits. This is all countries that don't have a free trade agreement with, only 6 in 3 years. Meanwhile, an additional 20 applications are currently awaiting approval, end quote. 20 applications are waiting approval that they're not approving. One of these applications was to Japan, and they talked about that one. All the other were to some other random countries. The fact of the matter is we're not exporting it to Japan in any major amount. If we're able to export it to Japan, competition will happen. They said that Japan has an oversupply. My response to this is they want cheaper and safer. Maybe they have enough LNG right now, but they should sell it but they also want better LNG. They want cheaper LNG, which the U.S. can provide if we allow our companies to compete. And they want safer LNG, which is not from Russia, not from their enemies, it's from their ally, the United States. That point has not been responded to. Moving on to their advantage about Russia counter. They basically said that nuclear energy is going to solve this. My response is that is still constriction. Look back to our 1AC, we still have evidence saying that they're still going to be constricted by Russia. Russia is still holding over them, and they aren't free. We should definitely remove this Russia, whether or not they have nuclear energy or not, they're still going to need LNG, and they also have no numbers about how nuclear is going to be able to replace it. Then moving on to their 2 inherency points. Their first inherency point, you can cross-apply all the responses I gave under the solvency about how companies are actually it's taking a long time and only one company. They're pointing out the purpose of terminals. My response to this is not to Japan. They talked about how the purpose of terminals are going to be inevitably exporting. Our response is not to Japan. They didn't bring up any evidence that these companies were specifically exporting to Japan. They proved one company, which isn't enough competition. And then finally, under the nuclear point about how it's not replacing the market, my response is market is available. Market is available. We can definitely still send LNG to Japan because there's still a market there. They're still the world's largest importer, and they want this better LNG. They want this safer LNG that can allow them to stand up to the enemy of Russia. So for that reason, we should export it to Japan. Thank you.